Mr. Poku, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Yes. Can you hear me too?
Yes, we can now. Go ahead. Yeah, okay. What we felt yesterday.
So what I'm saying that, yes, yesterday it's a tremor, it's a minor earthquake. The magnitude 3.6, the energy is so low, it won't be able to cause buildings to collapse, but it's enough to get people to feel the shaking down.
So when these things happen, what should we make of them? Does that mean there's something the matter?
Yes. What it tells us is that, one, our fault lines are still active. Because if a fault line is inactive, it's not capable of producing earthquakes. Once earthquakes are occurring along our fault lines, it means that they are active. And the other issue has to do with the rate at which we are experiencing these events, with these small events recently. It's what we think we should take serious and prepare for it, because it could be a precursor for a major earthquake to come. Yes.
When you say our fault lines are still active, what does that mean?
What it means is that stresses are still building up on these fault lines. And an active fault line, as I said earlier, is a fault line that is not dead. If it is not dead, it means it's capable, it's still in motion and therefore capable of producing an earthquake, right? So it's still active means it's building up energy, and from time to time releasing.
Is a fault line like an electric cable then, Mr. Poku?
No, a fault line is the weakest part of the edge. Okay, it's just like maybe let's assume you are having a car and some part of the metal breaks, okay, and you go and weld. Where you have welded then becomes your fault line or your weak zone, because any further forces or stresses that act on it is the same place that is going to break again. Okay, so you have a similar situation with the edge, where forces are acting on the edge. Some part of the edge has broken, and then becomes a weak zone, a fault line. So any further stresses will cause the same place to break again. Okay, and so we have some of these fault lines in Accra or in Ghana, and these fault lines is what is causing earthquakes from time to time. And they are active means forces are building on it, and from time to time they produce earthquake. If they were not active, no earthquake would be associated with it.
You talked about our preparedness. Is there anything we are doing that are contributing to these lines remaining active, that are weakening the earth? Because you've talked about how we should prepare for other things because these little tremors keep happening. What are the things we are doing that put us in this place where we are recording tremors, even if it's at 3.6?
Yeah, so it's a natural phenomenon. It's not a make of it's not man-made. It's a natural phenomenon. The earth forces are acting in the earth. It's internal forces, and these forces, when they reach a certain critical, they break the earth and then release the energy that built up in the earth in the form of earthquake. So it's a natural phenomenon. It's not a man-made activity. And so what we say we should prepare for is that, and as I said earlier, because these things are happening frequently these days, it could be a precursor that the major one is going to happen. And that means we have to prepare. And to prepare for an earthquake is just like preparing for any other forms of disaster. So it follows the disaster management cycle. And the disaster management cycle here means you have to make sure you reduce the risk along the entire circle of the entire management cycle. One aspect is mitigation, and that's the first aspect. We call that part a pre-preparedness measure. What it means is that you have to make sure, and that one is a long-term measure. It means that you have to make sure your buildings are resilient enough to be able to resist earthquakes. Because if buildings are resilient and major earthquake occurs and they do not collapse, then you'll be safe or you are protected. So that aspect for now is a major challenge. because we have our whole capital city exposed to these earthquakes or to this or flying within these fault zones. And so a mitigation measure will take a long-term process, because you have to make sure you know you map all your active lines and all your vulnerable grounds, and at the same time map all your vulnerable buildings. And before you even recommend retrofitting measures for all these buildings which are vulnerable, and that process will take a long time. And so if you are approaching a major earthquake, that's not the time to spend all your energy working towards building resilience, because you are getting closer. You have to do other preparedness measures such as education, early warning, preparing for response and recovery. So that is where we are dwelling much more. It doesn't mean that we are advising that we should neglect mitigation aspects, but then what we are saying is that that process will be ongoing, but it will take a long time to achieve the level of infrastructural resilience that we want.
We've had similar tremors in the past in Accra and along the areas that you've mentioned. Parts of the central region also experienced this in the Goma area. Where are we? It appears that once we get over the big news day, which is the day that tremor happens, and then the day after, which is when we talk to experts like you, the public does not hear much about what we are doing behind the scenes to make sure that we are this resilience that you're talking about. So where are we, and what can we do immediately? Because this was on Sunday, this was just yesterday. Where are we? What can the public do? Should we do something in particular immediately?
Well, so I'm saying those who can afford to, before an earthquake, before a major earthquake, those who can afford to ensure that their buildings are resilient enough should do that. Contact the geological survey to look at the ground on which your building is situated.
And those who can't afford?
And then,
what about those who cannot afford?
That is where the challenge is. That is where the challenge is. We cannot say that everybody in Ghana who has an infrastructure or building in Accra can afford to, within a short term measure, build a resilience. And it's not a peculiar situation in Ghana. It's all over the world. That is why Turkey were affected. That is why Morocco were affected. Even Afghanistan recently. So what we have to start advocating is that if we cannot afford, then we should intensify education on what to do during an earthquake. And I've always been saying that, fortunately for us, most of our buildings are short buildings. Most of them. Very few of them are high-rise buildings. Most of them are short buildings, so they are not as heavy as the big ones. And so if the people or the occupants in these short buildings knows what to do during an earthquake, then they'll be able to protect themselves or save themselves from what we call it, from a major injury or even death.
Mr. Poku.
But for those who are living in a high-rise buildings and heavy buildings, they should make sure work towards ensuring that their buildings are resilient enough to survive so that we don't witness what happened in Turkey.
Thank you for making time to explain these things to us.